Hey there, my name is Pravus. Welcome to Castle of Alchemists. This is a tower defense action RPG that came out earlier this year. It's got some pretty interesting promise to it, especially since I get to play as a giant alchemically-enhanced soldier that kind of is reminiscent of Doom Guy. Let's give a little bit of background for this game. The Castle of Alchemists was a safe haven for scholars and engineers and philosophers and scientists shunned by society. They created an impenetrable fortress until they screwed up horribly and portals from within revealed a new threat. Their only hope for salvation is to awaken Bellator the Alchemia, a first-of-his-kind alchemically-enhanced super soldier. His mutations may not be complete, but now that he's awake, he's gonna go crush a bunch of fools. And when I say this guy reminds me of Doom Guy, I mean, I know that sounds like a little bit of a stretch, but considering he runs around with a giant charged-up hammer and a blunderbuss and maybe even a shoulder-mounted cannon, I don't know, big, super meaty guy like this just kind of reminds me of Doom Guy. So the point of the game is we are going to be defending the castle through several different levels, right? We're going to be building up various different booby traps and towers and so on in order to deal with waves of enemies, likely getting into the fray and getting ourselves bloody in the process. Let's go ahead and jump into a level as an example, and I'll show you how this works. So we are currently set up in this tank over here, but right now we are in a preparation phase. The game is going to tell us where the enemies are going to be coming from, and we have a good idea how they are going to be pathing out of here. Now, in the bottom left, you can see how many resources we have to work with to build up our defensive mechanisms. And over here in the bottom bar, I've brought with me several different traps with different costs associated that I can use in order to deal with my enemies. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, for example, is set up some walls like this, which you're going to see in just a moment is going to change up their pathing, so now they have to run through this direction. Okay, that makes some sense. What if I then set up, let's say, I don't know, how about a furnace trap or something like that over here, followed by a sprinkler trap of oil, which will not only slow them down, but also can catch on fire. Seems a little bit mean, but if it works, it works. I'm going to save these 40 resources until the next wave. Speaking of which, if we simply click this button, we will put on our helmet and run to the forward fray of the action. I'm going to hang out over here real quick. The enemies will start coming through, and of course I will start blunderbussing them. Pew pew pew! Yes, now you're going to trigger off that oil trap, and they're going to start cooking. Look at that. Now, of course, all traps are going to have some cooldown associated, so I cannot rely on this forever, right? This is only going to last for a while. Once this fire goes down, I'm going to have to wait for something like, what, 15, 30 seconds for these things to reset themselves. That said, this is immensely effective, and actually by the time the next wave was ready, it's already got its cooldown. Wow. Easy mode. Honestly, by itself, this may be enough to deal with most threats that are going to be coming through in this particular level. Like, this is unbelievably powerful in and of itself. But it goes to show how some traps are going to be able to work in some pretty awesome combos. You don't get access to a lot of those combos at the very beginning of the game, if I'm completely honest with you. And it can get a little frustrating, because you'll feel like you need to run in there and do a lot of the damage yourself. And, well, while you could do that, it's going to be very painful, because you're just going to feel like your traps don't do you any good. You're going to have nothing but walls and spike traps, and the game's going to feel kind of unfairly hard at times, and you might get a little bit frustrated, but I do urge you to continue playing through it at least a bit longer, because once you start seeing these kinds of synergies, like oil and fire, oh boy, does it become a lot more fun, because you start thinking a little bit differently about how you approach every level. Now, as you can see at the end of this wave, we get to find out how long this took, how many points we got, blah, 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 a couple different accolades, and we get awarded another 320 resources in this case, since I got a little bit of extra bonuses from these 3 medals over here. So now we go back into the preparation phase, and we get to add a little bit more into our layout. Now let's try doing something completely different instead, right? Let's go ahead and set down, let's say, some spike traps. I'm going to go ahead and place one here and just kind of do a bunch of these in quick succession like this. I'm going to place down a barricade like this, which is going to force them to funnel through the direction I want. And then I'm going to place down a ceiling trap right along here, probably about halfway down, maybe toward the back. And this being electric, what it's going to do is as soon as an enemy runs through this area, it's going to zap everything in this area because all of these spike traps are conductive to each other. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and make sure he placed down, let's say, an extra barricade right here to try and force these guys to run underneath this trap. So in theory, as enemies run through here, if there's a bunch that are all piling up in this area, they all get zapped instead of just one, right? So I can have almost the entire map covered in spike traps with a few electric traps, and all of a sudden all the enemies in all the waves start taking huge amounts of damage. At least such is the idea. Is it going to be more effective than the oil and fire? Probably not. But there you go. Now, in the early game, as I said, you're going to be relying very heavily on your own personal combat capabilities. You have a few tools that are going to help you with that. First off, you can swap between a melee and a ranged weapon, as you've already seen. I have this hammer over here. I can take a few swipes of these guys, but it's usually pretty dangerous to do so. Usually better to stick at range and let the traps do what they're going to do if you can. This blunderbuss is pretty effective, though it does have a very slow rate of fire. You also have some special booby traps, so I can throw a grenade, for example, which doesn't do an absolute ton, but, I mean, it is kind of helpful to at least have a little bit of that. You also can set down some shrapnel traps. Now, these are very powerful and easily overlooked, but it is going to save you entire runs if used correctly. If an enemy runs through this, it's going to start dropping shrapnel for several seconds in this area and does a pretty surprising amount of damage. I'm actually going to back off over here because I kind of want some enemies to manage to get through and trigger the shrapnel trap so you can see it, which they just did. So here comes the shrapnel, and these guys are going to start getting shredded. Then run through here, the spike traps are going to do their thing, and the electric trap can go off, and bzzzt, this whole area, like that, gets affected. All right, so I'm going to build on this a little bit more. We're going to have some early electric traps and a couple of extra to just keep resetting this, in theory, control their movement, do lots of damage, blah, blah, blah. Do I feel like I need additional barricades? Yeah, let's do one more over here to kind of force them to run this direction and really stick to it. All right, this should be the last slave for this particular level, so let's get ourselves in position. Good thing is we can shoot over our own walls. I also unlocked a special booby trap, which is like a mechanical spider, and this little clockwork thing is going to run after enemies and go explode, which is kind of hilarious, and I love it. And that should be about it. I didn't really have to change much of anything, to be honest. I didn't even get past the oil. All right, whenever you complete a level, you do get to have some sort of a rating that usually can be based off of your performance, plus some of these challenges and so on. For example, I specifically did this because I wanted to get the kill 50 invaders with fire. So that's now done, but there are other things like, you know, acid and stuff like that. All right, fine. We don't have all that unlocked yet. You do get experience, and you can level up your character, which can give you some additional benefits. Also, you get to extract some loot, which can range from some more common to alchemical to very exotic goods. Now, what are these goods for? Well, if we go to the armamentarium over here, we can take a look. First off, as you level up, you get to mutate your character. Now, I don't currently have any extra points to use, but when you do level up, these points can be used in these different categories to boost yourself up in some way or another. For example, reduce the stamina cost of swinging your melee weapons, boost the damage of a booby trap, etc. Or you can boost up your individual character by getting, let's say, a dodge chance or extra health, or more stamina, critical hit chance, etc., etc. Lots of ways to boost up your character as you get stronger. Now, for the materials that we gather, if we want to go to the crafting section over here, there are several different things you can craft, including, for example, an upgrade to my hammer. I could do that. Now, if I want to craft myself a new hammer, it's going to have these different stats, and if I want to invest some different materials, higher level, you can see that the chance of getting a higher tier item increases, and the higher the tier is, the more bonus stats it's going to have. So you kind of want to just take the risk. Is it worth spending some of my precious resources to try and farm out a better random weapon? Can be pretty good for you. Once you've received whatever you're looking for, you head over here to the armory, and this is where you can equip things. For example, I've already got a tier 4 hammer and a tier 3 blunderbuss. Could use a tier 3 repeater crossbow instead if I want. I can craft different booby traps with higher levels as well, and of course that mechanical booby trap here is really good. But if you find yourself in a situation with some gear you no longer want, you can always just recycle it and get half of its materials back. If we go over to the workshop over here, this is where I'm able to manipulate some of my traps. Now, I can only take 8 traps in with me of any particular type, right? Which right now isn't a problem, but later on, once you have everything unlocked, you're gonna have to pick and choose. And then each of these traps individually also has some different features. For example, my spike trap could be a regular one for 35 resources, or it could be a poison trap for 40 resources. At the end of the day, if I'm just using it as a conductive plate, is this really necessary to make more expensive even for poison? Probably not, but at least it gives you an idea what kind of variants can exist. Do I want to trap down some mud with my sprinklers, or do I want to go for that precious oil? Right, these are the kinds of things you'll be able to change. And lastly, you can also change out some different tower upgrades. I don't have very many of these unlocked yet, but we have electric towers and ballista towers. Ballista obviously doing more damage sounds like a good idea until you realize you can do the electric tower thing and just kind of, you know, stack that up with conductive plates, and it's really, really effective. So let's try jumping into a different level, for example, this north warehouse over here. Now in this case, 2 different kinds of enemies are going to be spawning, but they all run through the same approximate area, which means we should still be able to cook these fools. So with 3 of these furnace and oil combinations placed down here, and a strategy I think is gonna work, we can also try placing down some of these conductive plates or spike plates I was talking about. Let's just go ahead and have a few of these on hand. I'll just set up for the future. In the meantime, let's go ahead and move on to that next wave and get ourselves set up as quick as we can, always setting down some of these booby traps so we can get a few extra physical kills that away. Go forth, my clockwork minion! Go boom! Oh, he did basically nothing. All right. You can see, by the way, my repeater crossbow is firing off a little bit differently than my blunderbuss. It's kind of a rapid-fire weapon with some pretty nasty recoil. We'll see how effective that is. All right, oil traps. Burn, fools! I'm shocked and appalled. These guys are actually trying to break through. Right, okay, so we're going to need to have more effective ways of funneling these guys to stay in the oil for a little bit longer, but the cooldowns are what's really getting me there. Let's just go ahead and try the next wave and see how well this one works. This level's a little bit more of a puzzle, and the game does get significantly more and more difficult as time gets on. You should definitely be aware for that. Some people are actually saying this game might be a little bit too difficult in some ways. I'm not sure if that's totally true. But it is something you have to kind of play a little bit as a puzzle, right? Know where to be aggressive, figure out what synergies works, kind of read the map, and then experiment. Some things will work better than others, for sure. Oh yeah, there we go. Double pools of oil over here. I can't imagine this working well. And there's some of the conductivity that I was looking for, which means that even as enemies start running through here, they start taking a lot of damage and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so this should absolutely be just a death corridor right here, which is the entire point. Definitely quite the crossfire here. You'd think they'd be smart enough to think, maybe we should go around, you know, find a different way or something like that. But no. No, these guys know their marching orders, and they are going to follow them down to the letter. This has always been kind of the flaw of all these tower defense games. It kind of assumes an absolutely brainless idiot of an enemy. Now, what gets really annoying is when you start facing off against enemies that have range attacks of their own. So you got to be watching and trying to bob and weave a little bit here and there so you don't take too much damage, because if you die, I mean, you get back into the fight, but you have like a 5 or 6 second cooldown before you're allowed to get back into the action, which actually can be a bit of a problem if you're relying heavily on your own damage to stop a wave. That does happen a lot in the early game, though as you're seeing now, it's not been much of an issue so far. I'm going to move this oil trap over here so that I can then start moving my spike traps further down here with the expectation that maybe, just maybe, I would like to have a much larger conductive path in order to zap our enemies. And then, for good measure, let's go over here and place down an electric tower so we have extra opportunities to trigger some shocks off on these fools. Good enough. Lock and load, rip and tear. Here we go. I don't know. How can you not say this guy looks a little bit like Doom Guy? He just does. Come on. Honestly, the biggest risk to me is twofold. One, I could still take some range damage, which is really annoying. And second, if I cluster too many of my defenses all together and all their cooldowns go off at the same time, then I find myself completely defenseless in other places. It's why you need to have several spread out defenses, kind of like I have now. This one will be on its own cooldown, then this one will be on a separate cooldown, then this one will be on a separate cooldown, and this is my emergency if it turns out that that's still not enough. Oh man, they're trying real hard. Case in point, some of the cooldowns for things of this oil should be done by about now, so in theory some of these guys could actually manage to sneak through. I'm hoping they don't, but I got plenty of booby traps just in case. Oh, never mind, that actually should be everybody. There we go! Only a decisive victory. Could have done a bit better, apparently, but alright, it was alright. We get some extra resources out of that too. Jumping back into our camp, there are a few different things you can click on over here. I don't know what this little thing does here, by the way. Don't click on it. My experience, it's crashed my game both times I have attempted, so I don't recommend it. Real quick, I'm going to jump into training over here, by the way, because I haven't really shown you guys the melee combat at all, because in theory, you really shouldn't be relying on it too much. But it is pretty cool because it's one of those giant hammers that you can charge up. In the bottom over here, you got 3 different charges. If I use it here, by right-clicking, we can do one super powerful attack, wha-boom, like so, which can be really good for clearing out waves if you find yourself getting overwhelmed. Otherwise, your attacks can be pretty strong here. The problem is you have stamina, shown in this little green bar down over this direction, so if you are constantly relying on melee to take out your enemies, you're probably going to die. There's kind of a weird balance in that way. You cannot be the one-man hero as much as you want to be. You can supplement your defenses very drastically, but you cannot be the person who goes in and takes down all threats on your own. You need to rely on the traps, and this becomes more and more evident the longer you play the game. So since I've already cleared out this warehouse of the castle, let's go ahead and leave there and move on into the second area, the next map. We can go over here to the river flow, and it gives you some sort of a preview for what this map is going to look like. Looks like we're going to have to split our forces between a couple of different areas, or risk trying to take all of them down in the very center when they come together, which would be a little bit risky, but our rewards for doing this is going to be unlocking a shooter turret and a sealing acid trap. If I had a lot more resources, I'd feel pretty good about splitting up my defenses and just being symmetrical here, but I'm not feeling great about it. That said, I also don't like having to rely on all of our defenses at the very last exit point where I don't have a chance to respond. So let's think about how we're going to deal with this. We can place down a few of these oil traps, and that'll still be very effective. It'll get a lot of enemies out of here. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but it will get a lot. I'm going to have faith here that this is going to work. That uses up pretty much everything I've got. But we have 2 of these combo traps on each of these paths, and then if they come together, well then hopefully I can take them down. I meant to swap out to my blunderbuss before I did this. Oh well. That's just going to have to be okay. Alright, so let's just kind of see how this works out. Where are we going to get attacked first? On this side, so I can hop over here and do a little bit of damage, of course placing down some booby traps of my own. Let's see how well this works. They should run through here. It triggers this, and they're all going to start burning. That's going to trigger a 15 to 30% cooldown over here. And, of course, this next round of traps is also firing off over this way here, so okay. Okay, we managed to deal with all of that. That took just a lot of hammering on my end. There's going to be 4 waves on this one. Oh, good. Okay, that's going to be great. All right, how many resources do we get? Only 400. That is not a lot. Not a lot to work with, if I'm honest. All right, I'm feeling a little bit more nervous about this. Let's try creating some fallback traps where if enemies do manage to break through, they still get whacked on pretty hard. We can try doing some conductivity traps. I probably want to go for... Oh boy, how do I want to do this? The stairs prevent any conductivity through here, so that's not going to be a great option. So we're going to want to funnel everyone together into the same area along probably like this. And we'll of course need to have some overhead traps, otherwise what's the point? Do a few things like this, and I really would have liked to have a little bit more resources to work with to place down more barricades and really force these guys through here. As it is, this is an incomplete design at best. Uh-oh. Well, I'll still give it my best shot. Let's just delay them as much as I'm able to with what I've got on my own over here. And here comes the first round of oil. Burn, you foolish Viking, whatever you are. Burn! All right, well, we're sort of holding on here. It's getting a little bit tight, though. It's fine. I've got a trusty hammer for a reason, right? Get in there and use what my mama gave me. A hammer. Look, I had a really weird childhood, okay? It's fine. Anyway, second wave is done. No one got through, which is good. So we should get maximum extra resources here. We get another 400. All right, but that's at least enough to start making the electric traps functional. So let's go ahead and start forcing these guys to walk through the directions I want them to. And then we can expand this a little bit further and add in more electric traps if I need to. Yes, all right, so this is at least now working exactly the way I want it to. I just want to have more electric triggers. So now we're in a situation where the fire weakens everybody as they get through. Stragglers hopefully get zapped. It's once they get right to this point where they're almost home free, and that's probably where I need to park myself and deal with any last guys getting through. I got a feeling this is about to be it. Let's see what happens, and zap! There we go, all right. Conductivity on all these plates, and it is not enough. Oh ho ho! Okay, good thing I got some booby traps set up with some shrapnel. That will also be good. Never underestimate the value of shrapnel, dang it. Stuff's great. And let's not forget that I still have access to my shoulder cannon. Oh, never mind, we finished wave 3, we're good. The shoulder cannon you can only use once per wave, so it's very much a, oh crap kind of moment. All right, 400 resources again, it looks like, so this will be my final opportunity for improvements. I'm thinking more electrical triggers would be good. And we could get rid of, I don't think we actually can get rid of, yeah, we can. We can get rid of these oil traps and move them if we wanted to, but I don't think I want to do that. Let's just go ahead and do more electrical triggers here and here, I guess. That'll be fine. And then we have enough leftover resources where if I want to do some additional oil and stuff, we could try to go for one last round over here. Or we could try setting off oil kind of like this. Yeah, we could possibly do that. All right, hold on. Let's do this. Plus another round of oil like so. Yeah, and the good news is that also will slow them down so they're stuck on the plates for even longer. I like this idea. This works. Oh, man, they're hitting me from both sides right away. Okay, no, this is, good. Right, go forth, my electric traps. Zap them. There we go. There we go. Look, it's starting to come together. It's working. All right, now some of these banner guys are giving these enemies extra armor, which definitely can be very difficult because it means your light damage traps like shrapnel don't do nearly as much of damage, but it's still working out okay for me, so I'm not feeling too worried about it. Still haven't had to use any of my charge attacks for my hammer yet, which is good. I like to keep those in reserve. Oh, they're starting to break through. Okay, might need to... Whoa, don't you dare. Ha ha ha. Okay, I might need to consider breaking it out now. No, wait, nope, seems like we recovered. We're all right. Oh, gosh, these javelin guys are so annoying. I don't like the range attacks. Go away. Is this it? This feels like it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. We dealt with all 4 waves. I gained a lot of XP, I hope. We killed a ton of enemies. We got, 653 physical kills, 101 electrical kills, and 843 fire kills, which kind of shows just how gosh dang effective the fire really is. And 3 challenges done. Not bad. Lots of resources, too. Holy crud. We did get 1 more mutation point. What do I want to go for there? I think we are going to increase the radius of turrets and stuff? Nah, let's not worry about that. Let's just give myself some extra crit chance on my ranged weapons since I do use that a lot. And under crafting, we can now craft a shooter turret, which is another power I'll be able to use. I'll use some extra stuff and try for a very high rarity. Let's craft. We get a tier 2. Now, I'll go ahead and scrap that, and we'll try again. Nope, that was a tier 1. Whoops, I have to turn these back on. Let's try one more time. Tier 3, okay. Increase attack speed by 20%, weight reduction, and blind chance. Yeah, this kind of seems okay. So let's go to the armory, and let's toss this on my hotbar. Oh, wait, we can't. We have too much weight. Well, dang it. Now, I kind of wish I had saved that mutation point for the ability to carry some extra weight, because now I can't actually take on this extra power. Well, that sucks. Tell you what, I'll get rid of my explosive flask and replace that with the turret instead. I think that's going to be better. And we can take along with us a new sealing acid trap. I'll go ahead and do that. Looks like this doesn't have any special variants to it. It's just a straightforward single-use trap. 75? 75 resources to place one of these. How is this ever going to be better than just fire and oil? I don't rightly know, but we can find out at the next level. Do we want to go to the warehouse floors, the Ironworks storage? We can get a better sword, a different thing to replace my hammer. I like this idea. Okay, so enemies are again coming in from 2 different directions. One's a very short path. They all join up right over here. So if I want to, I can probably use some barricades to try and force these guys to go into a giant kill box, which again risks a lot of cooldowns all firing off at the same time, and I don't love that, but it's something. So let's try something kind of over here, and I guess a fire trap kind of like this, maybe? Yeah, let's do something like this, see if this works. A sealing acid trap, huh? Do we want to try placing one of these? Does it have like a big area of effect? Or is it literally just going to affect this one like 3x2 area? I don't know. Depending on what the cooldown looks like, this may not be worth it, but I guess we have to try. All right, well, that's all the resources I can afford, so let's see how this goes with the first wave. I did swap back over to the blunderbuss, so we'll see if that works. Which direction are y'all going to be coming from? This one. That's fine. Shooter turret, place, and also booby traps. Boom. These guys are fast, which means I don't really like them very much. Ow. Okay, but we have lots of shrapnel, so I can't imagine they get very far. I am curious how this ceiling trap works, though. If anyone of you want to get through here, let's just see what it can do. Oh, it's a literal waterfall of death. Okay. I mean, yeah, it's okay. It's basically the same as my oil traps, but not as good. And I am about to die. Holy crud. Seriously, what's the cooldown on this dang thing? It's so slow. I don't trust this acid trap to save me worth anything. Okay, that was a rough first wave. I took a fair bit of damage, but we did manage to get through it. There's only 3 waves on this particular level. Okay, at least we do get to have as maximum amount of resources. I get another 400 to work with. Okay, not bad. Yeah, I don't think I like these acid traps very much. I am unimpressed. Oh, we got weird 4-armed guys chasing after me now. Okay, that's new. That's a new trick. And a bunch of charging berserkers who seem like normal attackers, except they have a lot of extra health. Well, the good news is they are running right through my acid trap, but that does not last very long, does it? No, sir, it do not. Okay. Yeah, I'm never using this acid sealed trap again. It's just not good enough for what I need it to be. Good in theory, but the connectivity is honestly just more consistent. Anyway, all right, wave 2 done. We do not quite get all the way up to this maximum dread level, probably because I took too much damage, I don't know. We get a little bit less resources as a result. Dang it. And it looks like this is all I can currently afford, which, to be honest, is not much. Okay, but extra triggers on both the left and the right. If they start throwing both waves at me, hopefully that works against them. We start turning this into one giant conductive kill floor. We'll find out. Still trying to hold my own here, but that oil is not lasting as long as I want it to. It's totally possible that this game is actually balanced well enough that the same strategies you've been using in the earlier game do not work in the later game. That'd be a very good sign, honestly, for the enemy variety if that were the case. I've got no extra heals left at this point, so what I've got is all I get to work with. Oh boy. I don't know how many more enemies I can expect in this wave. I feel like we've got to be getting close to the end. Could be wrong, though. Again, if I were not using my booby traps right now, by the way, I don't think we would be making this. That shrapnel and stuff is making a huge difference. That's where I went wrong when I first started playing this game, is I was trying to do everything with my gun and my hammer, and I really was not making use of the booby traps. That was just such a huge blunder. Once I made that swap, the game got so much easier. And actually, that was the last of that wave. Okay. Woof, cool. How's our score? Not bad, actually. Wow, flawless victory. It didn't feel especially flawless. Yeah, but I'll take it. Thank you. Look at all those materials. Now I have access to Zap Towers, which I think is an upgrade or a variant of a different tower I already had. The Alchemical Greatsword, and a Saw Trap. Ooh, how nefarious. I've got 2 extra points I can use over here, by the way. Let's go ahead and boost up our weight capacity a little bit further. And I'll save that last point just in case. Let's go to crafting. Let's get the Alchemical Greatsword. Let's toss on the better types of materials, and let's hope for something really good. Tier 3, okay. Cool, there's an extra condition. Poisoned enemies deal half damage, move slower, and cannot benefit from heal effects. Interesting. Well, this suddenly means that my poison spike traps become a lot more viable. There's the saw blade over here, 45 resources, pretty fast cooldown, and it does conduct electricity. Well, there we go. Suddenly that becomes useful. And for our towers, yes, there is in fact a variant, so we can have the electric tower or we can have the zap tower, which fires a little bit less quickly, but the electricity arcs between 6 different enemies. Okay. I think I'd rather just stick with the electric tower if I'm honest. All right, before I end this video, let's just go ahead and jump into the training real quick. I just want to see, what does the new sword look like? What does it feel like? Is it cool? I mean, it looks pretty cool. I'll give it that. It doesn't have any charges, though, like my blast hammer does. So what does this do? Charge on. Yoink. Okay. Is it doing, like, literally just poison damage? Cool. All right. I like this. I think this is a good place for us to end this video. Obviously, I'm still very early into Castle of Alchemists, and my understanding is the game gets a heck of a lot harder than what you've seen so far. So you really have to rely on both the action RPG side of things, right? Building up your character, making sure you use your abilities wisely, watch your positioning, and also the tower defense. You really cannot rely on only one or the other and expect victory. And that's a good sign for this game, to be honest. If it's going to market itself as 2 different genres being mixed into one, you really want it to rely heavily on both. And this game actually does seem to strike a pretty decent balance. The game can be a little bit difficult, but with a bit of perseverance, you can figure out a solution and you can be victorious. Thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If so, I would ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, make sure you hit that notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.